Hey, you guys, Tyson Johnson joining you for another Six Pack Dad Tribe podcast episode. You will recognize the man on the screen, Jeffrey Smith, or if you're just listening to this, you'll recognize his voice because he's been doing a lot of co-hosting of podcasts with me. Um, what prompted this was actually in the course of Jeffrey's coaching and the people he's helped in our tribe. We had one of our members specifically say, "Hey, let's get Jeffrey on here and let him tell his story in greater depth," because Jeffrey's gone from give or take 290 pounds. He's now down to 215, and has a really neat story to share. And I realized, you know what, he's right. We need to let Jeffrey we need to slow down for a minute and let Jeffrey tell his story. So Jeffrey, you're the man of the hour. The spotlight shines on you today. So go ahead and say hello and introduce yourself for maybe those who are new to the podcast and haven't heard your voice.
Well, I'm Jeffrey Smith, and I do some coaching with Tyson in the tribe here. And I've had some success with the program after several years of bouncing around with my weight and fitness and different fitness goals. All stemming from about 8 years ago when I was severely overweight, and that's kind of how my journey started. But there's really more to that story than that starting point of just being heavy. What got me to that point of being heavy, and how did I decide to move past that and try to get my health back on track?
Yeah, and before we go there, let's also just cover a little bit of basics. So you're a family man, you're a dad.
Mm-hmm.
You don't live in the gym. You've got a full-time career.
Mm-hmm.
You do procurement, and then you're an entrepreneur on top of that.
Yep.
And then you do coaching for me.
Yep.
Got a grandson and two daughters, and happily married for many, many years.
Yes. Yes.
So let's just dispel any kind of, I guess, concerns for Jeffrey's one of us, right? You're living the busy dad life.
Yeah. No, I am busy, and I don't have extra free moments in my day necessarily. Everything is, I utilize as much of my day as possible to be productive in one way or another, whether that's building the business, paying attention to my real day job, or building relationships with my family. And the fitness aspect and the nutrition aspect of my life is very, very small part of that, which is, learning to maximize that and make gains in this area was very important to me because I don't have, a college bachelor lifestyle that allows me to spend copious amount of time in the gym.
I love what you just said too, because ultimately the way Jeffrey and I know we're successful in helping dads is if they can succeed in fitness, but then if that then elevates every other aspect of their life. And I loved what you said, that's fitness is a small part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely know it when it's out of whack, but when we get it in check and then we have greater balance and we feel better about ourselves, you've already added value. So tell us, yeah, let's go to wherever you want to start your story, and kind of going into you at 290 and what was going on in your life. And why don't we start there?
Well, it really culminated. The 290 was a point in the beginning of 2012. So 8 years ago, almost exactly 8 years ago. Really, February of 2012 is when I had the epiphany of I had to make some changes in my life. I was too big, and other aspects of my health were reflecting that. My blood pressure, little things like acid reflux, and just the ability to be active in general. Not to say the least of my clothes didn't fit well, so there was some embarrassment and a little bit of unspoken shame in being unhealthy looking. I had friends and I worked and I had good relationships with my employees, but internally there I was tearing myself up because I wasn't healthy and I didn't represent the person I felt I was internally, visually, and that might sound vain or a little bit simple. And people say, it doesn't matter what you look like and all this kind of stuff. And to a certain degree, that's true. Um, but it does affect how you feel about yourself and that image that you project to other people and how effective you are in building relationships and maintaining relationships when you have baggage, when it comes to, and it's not just, people focus this on women a lot. Men struggle, I believe, with this just as much as women do, this self-image and how we feel about ourselves. And that's why there's so much the yo-yo dieting and the bouncing up and down of weight and that kind of stuff, because there's things in our life that drive us to those different points. And at that moment in my life, even though I did a good job and I had a good relationship with my employees, I hated, with a capital H, the career that I was in, and I was miserable, which in itself caused anxiety and stress and all the other things that you carry around when you're miserable at work. What you do, 80% of your time you hate, definitely spills over into the 20% of time that you have to spend with the other parts of your life. And it is a little ironic because in college I was extremely fit. I was a gym rat. I spent a lot of time working out and staying fit and running and lifting and building muscle in college, all the way up to the point where we got married. And then life changed a little bit, and you focus on a career and a job. And though that time that I was able to spend in the gym before didn't really exist anymore. I had a wife and we were going to start building a family. And so I let that get away from me, and then compound that with a job that I didn't like. Food was my solace. That's what I went to. I didn't pay attention to, every lunchtime eating a foot-long Subway sandwich. Those kind of things none of that entered in my mind, that there were consequences to this, all compounded. And even going to the doctor and saying, hey, you got high blood pressure, you got to do something about it. And they're giving me medicine for that. It didn't register, that I needed to get healthier to avoid some of the things that were happening in my life. If I was happier with myself, that would have translated into other areas of my life. And I think that's very, very true. And so, for a while, I liked to blame doctors and say, hey, the doctors never said I had to lose weight. They just gave me medicine, and now we know that, most doctors aren't going to prescribe a healthy lifestyle to a certain degree, because there's medicine and pills to fix the ailments, and preserve your life. They help you survive, but they don't help you thrive. And so in 2012, I made that decision to start thriving instead of just surviving. And I realized there was a critical moment that at 40 years old, I was going to go through, I might not make it to 50, depending on what was happening in my life. If my health continued that path, there was a very, very good chance that I wouldn't live till 50, or I wouldn't live till 60 years old. I wouldn't see my grandkids. I wasn't going to see my daughters get married. And that became a very real thing for me, and a motivating factor for me to start getting healthier. And my primary goal at that time was not, I don't want to be, the musclehead I used to be in college. I just wanted to be lean and fit for my family. Building muscle and spending all that time in the gym, that was no longer attractive to me. I needed to find something to help me, lose the fat, lean out, and it reversed some of the things that were happening in my body: cholesterol, high blood pressure. I had a potassium issue when we did blood tests. So there was a lot of things that I wanted to correct, and I knew that losing weight was a primary factor in starting to reverse the damage that I was doing to myself.
Okay, so basically over the last, so you nipped this in the bud, figuratively speaking, about 8 years ago was kind of a wake-up call. You said 2012, I think.
Yeah.
And that's when regaining control for trying to get fit again and lean, that's when the journey kind of restarted for you.
Yes, it was exactly then. I saw a photograph of myself from the previous Christmas. So this was, like I said, January, February of 2012. I was looking through photographs of the Christmas 2011 Christmas, and I saw myself sitting on the couch in a hockey jersey, my Red Wings hockey jersey, and it was stretched tight, across me. And in my mind, right there, I thought, I can't. A hockey jersey shouldn't be tight like that. I can't be so fat that I can't even wear my hockey jersey anymore. So that was the beginning of the catalyst. Now, it took me a few more months for me to actually put anything into action, plan. And it took another small event of, embarrassing my daughters a little bit, unbeknownst to me at the time, because I was struggling to keep my shorts up. I was too big. My shorts wouldn't stay up, and I was constantly having to hike my shorts up, and that was embarrassing to them. And they said something to my wife that, I had been over at the high school helping with one of the plays, the musicals, and they told my wife, that they saw. They don't know if anyone else saw, but they saw, and they were embarrassed, and so that horrified me. That, I'm not trying to embarrass my kids, and if that was something that was embarrassing them, that was a big deal to me, because I'm a dad like anybody else, and I don't mind teasing my kids and picking on them and embarrassing them in fun ways, but that wasn't that. And so that was really the moment that I was like, okay, I cannot be, fat anymore like this. And that's when I truly called myself fat at that point. And a few things, manifested. I realized how I had not consciously looked in a mirror other than maybe to shave in a long time because my face was fat. And, I didn't realize it. I started putting these things together, and I wore black a lot, because I subconsciously I felt, black was slimming. They tell you though, black is slimming, and it's not slimming. It's only slimming to the wearer. It's not slimming to anybody else that sees how big you are. You still look like a big fat guy in a black shirt. And, so that, that's kind of self-depreciating humor now. But at the moment, as you're looking in the mirror, realizing that, oh my gosh, how did I get to this point? How did I get to be as big as I am? And I was truly afraid to get on the scale. I was like, I did not want to know how much I weighed at that point. So by the time I actually weighed, so when I say 290, I'm guessing because it was about a month and a half before I actually stood on a scale, and I was 265 when I finally got on the scale after starting my regiment of walking and trying to jog a little bit for about 6 weeks and cutting my and I did it the wrong way in the beginning, but I just total calorie deficit. I was eating 400 or 500 calories a day and trying to walk at least 3 miles, and that was my plan. Is like, I don't know what else to do, but this is this is where I'm going to start. Less calories and more activity. And that was the extent of my, cardio weight loss type knowledge at the time, because I never applied it before. I never had to really. I ate as much as I wanted. I worked out hard in the gym, and my body kind of figured it out, and I didn't have a problem with being overweight all those years. So that's kind of how I started. And literally, people think I'm joking. I could not get to the mailbox and back without being out of breath. It was that, that severe of it weighing on me. And so anything I do now, I try to imagine I have to, if I to be back to that state, I have to put, a 75-pound weight vest on my body to simulate that, what I carried around all day long.
Yeah, and it's funny because you're answering a lot of my questions as you're sharing. That was going to be one of my questions, is over the last 8 years, to basically describe and summarize that journey and talk about, like, what have you done to find ongoing motivation to stick with that? Because that makes your story somewhat unique
Well,
and not relapsing.
and that's been a challenge because I have at times allowed my weight to creep back up to, close to 240. And I've gone through some times where I wasn't happy with work again, or there was something else going on. And my default emotional reaction is to eat, and that comfort food, whatever it is, beef sandwiches and big meals. And, so I have yo-yoed. I'm a typical example of, my weight bouncing up and down, and I lost all that weight. And I actually went from whatever I was at, I broke the 200-pound range and got to 199. And, so I was for like 2 or 3 days, I was 199 pounds. And then I got back up to about 206, and it hovered at 206 for a long time. I was able to maintain a 206 to 209 for a long time. But I wasn't lean looking, that six-pack dad tribe lean look that, that we're trying to achieve. I was not. I was skinny fat. I just lost weight, but I wasn't fit looking if I took my shirt off. So there was another component there that was like, I'm still not comfortable with how my body looks. And I didn't really know how to, achieve that, at the point. But then I got into things that were adding some gratification, and kind of, I was able to kind of supplant those feelings of, I can't go to the pool comfortably, but I started running races, 5Ks, half marathons. I got into triathlons, and achieving those things, to me, those were big milestones. I can do this. It didn't matter that I was still kind of skinny fat, but I had the endurance and the ability to achieve these things that many people would not even attempt. And that's what led me into my Ironman training and trying to achieve that. But over the years, there have been 2 significant shifts in my fitness goals just because of things happening, to me. And you have to, you got to sit down and reevaluate. And the first time that happened, I was not prepared for that shift, that reevaluation of, I need to get back to, focused on something fitness related, because when I'm successful in fitness, I tend to be successful in the other things that I try to endeavor in.
Bet. So you had a nice shift aha moment in 2012 and got a bunch of the weight off, got into triathlons. And then why don't you tell us, if you would, about another shift with another obstacle that came your way with your heart, and then kind of bring that to when you and I met and started working together.
Sure. So at the beginning of 2015, I started training for the Louisville Ironman. So I had made a decision that I wanted to attempt the biggest fitness obstacle I could possibly think of, in 2015, and hopefully inspire other men my age and my, fitness, range, guys that didn't think they could achieve, could see me do something this big and be like, okay, it's not impossible. This guy isn't a Superman. He's just a guy that worked hard to do something. And so I hired a coach, and I trained for 2015 Ironman. And, I thought a big achievement would be 3 full Ironman races, triathlons, before I turned 50. So that was the goal. And then it was going to be, we'll reevaluate at 50 and see, what do we want to do? Do we want to continue with this, or do we need to do another shift in how we want to spend our time? Because it takes a lot of time. I mean, there's a sacrifice the whole family makes when someone decides to pull something off like that. Because it's not just an activity, it becomes a lifestyle, and a very time-consuming and expensive lifestyle. So I did that in October. I completed the Ironman in October, and I took the rest of the year off from any physical activity because it was so grueling. I mean, that training and that race were so grueling that from the middle of October until 2016, I didn't do anything. I didn't go to the gym. I didn't do anything whatsoever other than watch what I ate. And so, talking to Karen, my wife, I said, I want to do 3 of these, which is one every other year, every 2 years. So if you'll allow me that, that's my goal. And then we can sit down and talk about doing something different. And she was like, that's fine. So I got, so in 2016, end of the year, I started training hard for the Chattanooga Ironman because I didn't want to race the same course because I wanted to test myself in different environments. And I went to a triathlon camp in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona. I spent a week down there at triathlon camp, and that was in April of 2017. And in May of 2017, I ended up having, a significant heart event that put me in the hospital for 5 days. And it was either a lingering virus that caused my heart to enlarge, and I had the foresight to go to the doctor because I didn't feel good, and I didn't attempt my run that afternoon, or the doctors felt that would have been catastrophic for me to have tried to run. It was a warm day in the afternoon, and I had 9 miles I needed to get in, and I didn't do it. I went to I went to urgent care, and they sent me right to the hospital, and that effectively ended my racing. Doctors were like, "You absolutely can't race, at least for this year. You can't race." Well, you take it into, from May to the end of the year of doing that, zero activity. I mean, I wasn't even allowed to do anything, other than just walk. I was cleared from nothing until the end of that year. And by that time, the passion and the desire to race, it was too far behind me to rebuild that base, and I lost interest in it. So I shifted to powerlifting and strength training, and I felt if I can't race, and be a triathlete at 50, then I can at least be the strongest 50-year-old guy that I know. I could be a 1%er. And so I embarked on that journey of strength training and trying to shifting my focus. I sold my bike. I kind of purged myself of those triathlon things in the house other than my medals that I have, and moved on to something different. And then I ended up blowing my shoulder out, which was a catastrophic injury in October of 2019. So there seems to be a pattern. Octobers seem to have a pattern in my life. So I'm glad to have gotten past this one just recently with no significant catastrophic health event happening to me. So that put me down again. So I injured my shoulder in October. I had to have surgery this past January, and I was not able, so all the gains that I had made strength training and lifting, that all dwindled again. So I had to refocus again. How do I stay engaged and motivated, not being able to do the same things that I was just doing? And I had gotten so close to achieving that goal again, and it was, the rug got pulled out from underneath me. And that's what ultimately led me to, making a phone call to you and saying, listen, I have not been able to do, I was in a funk this past year after the shoulder injury. I got into a funk, and I allowed that layer of fat to creep back up on my body. And I realized that my best work was done when I had a coach. I could focus and do things when I had somebody leading me and guiding me in certain areas. And I was tired of the up and down yo-yoing of, the extreme diets or whatever to lose fat and not being able to sustain it. I needed a sustainable plan. And I knew you had that tool and that program you'd built. And I wanted to combine that with light strength training of what I was still able to do, and your nutritional, guidelines to be able to bring my body fat percentage down and maintain that comfortably and healthily and happily, so that I don't suffer, like a lot of guys do. You get fit and then you let off the gas and then you get unfit. And the older we get, it's harder to get unfit.
You bet. So you and I started working together. When would it, June, July of 2020, right
Yeah,
around there?
might have been the beginning of August. I can't remember
Oh,
exactly, but yeah,
uh-huh. Okay. And I have to say, like, you've been a textbook, like, I call you the powerhouse. Your attention to detail, like you're the dream client. So much, in fact, that we did some Q&A calls. We've kind of been a work in progress with this tribe, and you've done so well that I realized months into you doing this and seeing the weight come off and you follow and seeing your passion with fitness and this is a way of life, that I wanted to bring you in as a coach. Um, so why don't you take a minute to talk about, I guess, any lessons learned, because now you're down to 215 and kind of focusing on the chiseling aspect of things and not skinny fat, but
right.
chiseled. But I think after that, I think where we ought to go ultimately is lessons learned and thinking patterns
Hmm.
that, as you know, the client who asked for this interview, let's target it anonymously to that person and think through and talk about what's the mindset and how do you do this? How do you stay motivated? And I'll kind of guide you in that. But let's start with I guess things you've learned, just you and I working together, coaching, um, you the last 4 to 5 months, and how you've done so well and stayed motivated, and because you've plateaued, you've still hit obstacles, and yet you've stuck with it.
Well, it's I do well when I set short-term goals. And not just the goal just isn't to be lean at 10% body fat, and then there's no, when's that going to happen? I don't know. That I can't. My personality doesn't allow me to do that. I have to whiteboard something, and I have to have that goal written down so I can see it all the time. And for me, it really was a frustration of, after coming out of the hospital with the heart issue and stuff, and the medicines that they give you, and the things that kind of stuff does to. And I'm not using that as an excuse. So I don't want people to think that this is an excuse, because there is a hack around it. But it does change your body chemistry and how your body reacts to different stimuli, and you have to have a mindset that, okay, how do I navigate around these certain things and still make the progress that I do? Albeit my progress is slower than a lot of guys, and it may have to do with some of those other factors in my life that way, and how I'm built and what my body really wants. My body wants to be a fat guy. That's what it. That's what I've determined. Internally, my natural state is like a fat caveman. And I don't want that. So I'm fighting against that internal image, whatever that program that I got, when I was born, to be that way. I have to work around that, and it's possible. I just have to work very hard at doing it. The things that I've learned, particularly from you, is the focus on the macros of nutrition. And I'll be honest, is all the years that I did anything, I rarely paid attention to macros prior to you, other than eat as much protein as you can if you want to get big, and if you want to try to lose weight, lose the carbs, those kind of that kind of philosophy. And being able to utilize tools like the MyFitnessPal and all that kind of stuff and incorporate it into not only our conversations together, but working with the guys, has allowed me to have a deeper understanding of how those macros work together, how hydration works in conjunction with the food and the number of meals you put in your body, and when you put those meals into your body, that nutrient timing has an effect in how we do things. So hence the intermittent fasting and how we've put that program together, and you've designed that. Those were all not new concepts to me, but I had never put them into practice and understood how they work together, particularly the hydration part. And that seems strange, being a former triathlete. I hydrated to keep myself from, becoming dehydrated in those activities, but I never factored in, the daily hydration of how water impacts how our body digests and utilizes the foods that we put into it.
Yeah.
And so those were big deals to me.
Yeah. Excellent. It's an amazing story. Anyone who listens should be able to find inspiration from you, with you sticking with this journey, and the fact that you haven't given up with all these different obstacles you've encountered. Why don't we, because as a coach, you see and know that we do some mindset work as well, and that's a big part of this. And some of our clients struggle with food addiction. Some struggle with using that as a coping mechanism late at night, as you've briefly mentioned. Why don't we focus kind of the rest of the interview on things as you reflect back, and if there's someone who's listening to this who is 20 or 40 or 100 pounds overweight and just doesn't know what to do, what have you learned that that could help someone with this life-changing journey that they want? Because you're a 290 to a 215 guy with ups and downs, and now you're nearing um, kind of the ideal, or you're getting closer and closer to where you want to be.
Right.
And so I'm guessing that there's some things you've learned maybe about emotional eating, about your relationship with food, about your attitude toward exercise, just anything at all. What could you offer that would be of value?
Well, I would say, if I came across my old 290-pound self and had to give that guy advice, one of it is not to worry about what everybody else thinks around me. Get out and do it. At 290, you're fat and you look fat and you don't want to be that way. Everybody can see it. So there's no shame in, putting on your sweatpants and the shirt that, in your mind, you're like, this shirt is too tight and I don't like how it looks. So I'm not going to go out and do my walk. I'm not going to go out. You got to forget that stuff, because people are really applauding you as you're the guy out walking and they're the guy looking at you through their front window, standing in their house. You're the guy out there walking, not them. So everybody's looking at you thinking, I need to do that. Nobody's going to say, I don't need to do that. I need to be more active. I should get out and walk. I can't believe it's 25 degrees outside and there he goes, just walking through the neighborhood again. They're high-fiving you and clapping for you silently, even though they might not tell you. And you have to understand that nobody cares, that they care that you're out doing something positive. They don't care, to take the time. They're not making fun of you. They're not judging you. Every once in a while, you get that oddball person that's going to say, I can't exercise because my doctor says it's not good for me. And they're double-fisting Mountain Dews as they're talking to you to tell you not to do it. You got it. Those guys are the bottom of the bell curve. You got to throw those guys out. They don't count. But you'd be surprised when you start to lose weight, and it's evident in other people's vision when they see you within 2 weeks to 3 weeks of consistent work. You will start to change physically, and you might not see it so much yourself, because for a long time our eyes see the fat person. It takes a long time for our eyes to shift. Other people see the change much quicker than we will. And you will start to see people making comments like, one could be just like, did you lose weight? Things like that. And that gives you, open up to those kind of comments. Say, yeah, I've been working real hard to try to lose some weight and get back in shape. I want to be healthier. Everybody will applaud you for that kind of thing. Nobody's going to be negative or judge you for that. And that's what holds us back sometimes. We don't want to go to the gym because we look so out of shape. And people at the gym sometimes look really in shape. So walking that treadmill next to the guy that's got the six-pack abs is intimidating at times. You want to do strength training, walking up to that squat rack or that bench next to the guys that are, bench pressing your body weight is intimidating. But those guys are also looking at you and saying, nice job, dude. Because they all started somewhere, wherever that journey was for them. Very few people are naturally gifted at being perfectly in shape, right from the very beginning. They're out there. Unfortunately, we do run into them, but it's not the norm. So I would tell myself to stop, feeling sorry for myself, put your shoes on and go for a walk and not worry
Yes.
about that.
Okay, so that's an awesome nugget. Just the kind of the shame, the embarrassment, avoiding comparison. That's very solid. What about people who struggle with excuses and even knowing excuses like, um, you know what, today I'm just feeling lazy, or this just takes too much work and I'm too stressed at work. I'm just now's not We tell ourselves excuses all the time, and oftentimes we know that they're lies and they're
Right.
inaccurate. So, like, how have you stayed motivated just to keep trying?
Well, one is I set goals, tangible goals, and I don't make them so crazy that they're pie in the sky. So, I'll set a goal for, by the end of December, I had plateaued a little bit. I've started to see the needle move some. The end of December, I've got a number that I want to see, and I'm working hard towards just that number, not the overall number of, I need to be 8 to 10% body fat and, 192 pounds of lean muscle. That's a larger goal out there. This goal, I can't think about that one because that one happens if I achieve the smaller goals. So if I get to my December goal, then I can set my January goal, that all back into the big goal. And for me, a very real primary, and this is very personal to me, but with Carolyn getting married next year, I have a goal and a vision of buying a new suit that is, tailored to fit me specifically, with my, in shape self. And I have a picture of that in my mind. I know exactly what it wants to look like, what I want to look like for that. And that's a big motivating factor for me because I've put that out there and I've talked to my wife about it and, making that a real goal so that she can help me reinforce that and stay motivated. So those days where I don't want to get up at 5:30 in the morning and go to the gym, but she's getting up to go walk with her walking friends in the neighborhood, and she's doing that outside in 23-degree weather, and I'm laying there going, I don't want to go to the, temperature controlled gym this morning because I'm feeling lazy. That doesn't work anymore. I can't, it's like she can't do that and me lay here, you know. Now there are days I can't get up in the morning and go because I have early meetings and I have to adjust my schedules. But other than unless I'm sick, my training days I make my training days. I get to them, one way or the other. And even like, this weekend I wasn't feeling great. I still went and I did some sort of activity because you're building momentum. And I talk about this when I give some speeches and talks about motivation and building momentum. That momentum builds upon itself. We've talked about that locomotive, Tyson, that gets moving. And once that locomotive of motivation's moving, we have that responsibility to keep it fed with energy and moving. So even going to the gym and walking slowly on the treadmill for 40 minutes is contributing to that energy and that movement. And that keeps me motivated to continue to work and get back in the gym and do the things that I need to do.
I'm gonna share a few things I've learned from you, and be thinking about any other, I guess, final words of wisdom or anything else you want to share as a part of this story in this interview, which has been awesome. I've learned a couple things from you just watching you as a coach and how you stay motivated for that I've benefited from personally. One of those, I brought you on after you had made a lot of progress in the program and you were starting to stall out a little bit. And one of the things that's powerful is, I mean, you are on medication. You have to be sensitive to heart issues and things like that. That you have some obstacles that maybe some people wouldn't have to deal with. And in spite of that, I have watched as you have repeatedly given back, offering lots of time every week. Um, you're a coach, and of course, I pay you some for that, but you have chosen to give back and invest in helping others. And I think that that is a really powerful way that people can stay motivated on this journey for life. I think it's a huge part of my success since 2004 till present has been me and Sherry trying to give back and help. And yes, we're running a business, but for the longest time we didn't make a penny. We lost money trying to do this, but by imparting knowledge and trying to help people, we receive, and it keeps us motivated. And I've watched you blossom as a coach, as almost a secret weapon. The other piece that's been pretty powerful is you post pictures of shirts. Um, and this falls under your mini goal thing, whether it's a hockey shirt or you have found a way to find non-scale victories along the way that I have found is very powerful. Hey, I noticed the pants are fitting looser. Hey, this shirt fits different. Even if you had plateaued, you found other things to be excited about, to give your basically to put points on the board using Sam Richardson's coaching that that was so powerful that he gave to our tribe. Winners find a way to put points on the board, even if they're behind, even if they're on the back getting ready to be pinned in wrestling. They
Yep.
find a way to be victorious in spite of all that. And I've watched you do that very well. Um, Whether you've consciously known those things or not, I found that pretty powerful.
Well, one of the things that I've always tried to convey, and I learned the hard way, was that the scale is not the end all to be all. We use that scale as a barometer because it's easy to see tactile progress when we step on the scale and we're lighter. You know, on weigh day, you've made some progress, but losing the body fat is one part of this whole journey. We're building a lifestyle, and that lifestyle translates into not only our food knowledge and our activity, but how we view and behave in all other areas of our life. And learning to find those non-scale victories, to me, are very key because if I can't find non-scale victories in this, how do I find non-scale victories in other areas of my life when things aren't going exactly the way the script says they're supposed to be going? I run a business too on the side. And so I have to find those positives and those victories when the revenue isn't exactly what we want the revenue to be. When employees get COVID and I have to deal with that kind of thing, how else do we stay positive and motivated to run the business? So that attitude and that mindset, and I'll call it a skill too, to find non-scale victories is very important to me because it translates into other areas of my life, and not just standing on the scale. And for me, in the long run, the scale is less important to how my self-confidence and in my ability to see myself in a positive light and feel good about how I look and how my clothes feel and how other people might be looking at me and how I present myself out because of those feelings I have of myself. Those ultimately are the more important things for me in the program than what the scale says at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's very well said. And a lot of times as dads, we have you're coaching a lot of these, or they're in the community, and so you've gotten to know them well. A lot of these dads are down 20, 25 pounds, and it's interesting because we all have this within ourselves to achieve. Each of us has, using your words, if we melt away the fat, we have this awesome muscular fit body underneath it all. All we have to do is reveal that.
Yeah.
And the reality is a lot of our listeners have bachelors and MBAs, and they've failed at business and then they've succeeded, and some of them have probably been divorced and then been remarried, and we have all gone on a journey to get to where we are. And this muscle inside of us that allows us to confront adversity and to be tenacious and to pursue a goal.
Mm-hmm.
Many of these dads who become clients of ours, they're really good at executing in other aspects of their lives. And all we have to do is train them to use that skill set they already have professionally and apply some of that drive and determination and balance. And and they find themselves winning with their fitness as well. And to your point, then it's like I I am more fit than I've been in 20 years using that's what Star just posted in our community. He's down 25
Yep.
pounds. And it's like this rebirth happens in their life. And then it's like, you know what? Sure enough, I had this within me all along to achieve this.
Yeah.
What should I go conquer now? It's just this beautiful transformation process where we realize we're much stronger than we think we are
Yes.
and to achieve that. So
It's a
anyway,
building block for other things. Fitness is a building block. Being healthy is a building block. It's not the end goal. It's an essential part of having successful relationships and achievements in all the other areas of your life. If you can't be fit, and now, of course, there's always an exception to the rule. There's somebody out there that, is not healthy who's a billionaire, and they've made money and they've been successful and they have friends. But in general, if you can conquer this part, this obstacle, you'll be able to conquer all those other things in your life because this remains a constant. And people will begin to recognize you for those constants. They know, hey, we can't, we're not going to Dairy Queen for lunch if Jeff's with us. We're not stopping at McDonald's if we're, driving for a business trip. That stuff becomes very evident and it influences those other people in positive ways. And so even though that small amount of influence, that transference of positivity to these other people is a very important and powerful thing, and it's contagious that way. And eventually somebody will come up to you and say, I want what you got. You were 290 pounds and now you're not. I need what you did. What happened? And some of those people will be like, okay, it wasn't a magic pill. Now I'm not interested. But, most of them will say, I'm willing to not be like this so that I could be like that because I know it's the right thing to do. Tell me what do I need to do? And I've always told you, it doesn't matter. You tell me what to do in this program, I'm going to go do it. If it works, I keep doing it. And if it doesn't, I come back and say, Tyson, that didn't work. Jeff, go eat mulch because you'll lose weight. Okay, that didn't work, Tyson. What's the next thing? It's all about achieving what we're trying to work on and hack this process, which is different for every single person. My goal, is to come up with a blueprint for people that is generic enough that they can apply it to their situation, and there's enough avenues for them to choose to create that hack of their own, for themselves that's unique only to them.
I really liked something else you said about it becomes a stabilizing influence in our life. A lot of our listeners are spiritual, gospel centered people, and we're familiar with how that can be an anchor to someone spiritually. And with our fitness and our health, I have found a really similar thing has happened. A lot of times when work gets out of control, when I find I'm moving my family from Las Vegas to St. Louis and we're selling a house and then we have to buy a house and starting a new job. Like the last year has been very stressful for me and my family. And all of us can relate to those time periods. And you can feel like life is out of control. Well, if in the midst of that, you remain centered to whatever your center is, maybe it's spiritual things, but in addition, if you maintain control over your eating and you continue to invest brief time periods with exercise, you will maintain a sense of control when life feels out of control.
Absolutely.
And that is at the heart of what we're trying to help, how we're trying to help people transform their lives is we're begging people to dive into this journey and to find a sense of stillness and control with their health and their fitness as a
Yeah.
foundation to then bleed over into gaining control over everything else.
And, and being in the gym and that activity, I have 100% control over what I'm doing in there. in the results that I achieve in that gym, barring getting hurt. That stuff. When I step in the squat rack, it's me and the bar and the weight, and I'm in control. And that's a very cathartic thing for me, is to be able to work out my aggression and my thoughts. And, like I told you, a lot of my best ideas come from, stomping on the elliptical machine, being in there, knocking out a real fast, high intensity workout. The light bulb goes off, those juices are flowing. That's my Zen place, if you will. Because the rest of life goes by is happening at 1,000 miles an hour. The only place I have control over that speed is in the gym and in my training. And I said it's a small part of my life. It is. I don't spend any more than an hour, 6 days a week in the gym. 6 hours a week out of all the available hours is all that I dedicate to maintaining my fitness. So it's not a lot of time. So the people that say, I don't have time to do this, my life's too busy. I got picking kids up, dropping kids off. I got work, I got meetings. You find an hour every day to do something that you want to do. No matter what it is, I don't care what it is, but everybody's been able to find an hour to do something that they do for themselves or they enjoy. And so it's not impossible. Nobody can come to me and say, Jeff, I don't have time to be healthy.
Yeah. And you nailed another thing that completely I've experienced the same thing. You talk about catharsis, which is, as a psychology major, that's an emotional release. That is a period of clarity. And I found the same thing. I was a nonprofit community leader for 4 years in Las Vegas, and very perplexing, challenging issues we were trying to solve in people's lives. And I think that there's opportunity costs, using a business phrase, of people not being in the gym, because, like you, some of the best thoughts, the strokes of creativity and intelligence that came to me to solve these very perplexing problems came while I was sweating and exerting myself and felt like I had control lifting the weights or on the elliptical. And there are costs, opportunity costs, if we don't make that investment.
Yeah.
Consider how much those thoughts and strokes of intelligence are worth. I mean, I would have spent thousands of dollars to have had those types of thoughts and ideas that came to me over those 4 years and throughout my whole life. They're priceless. And you can't just manufacture those. It comes with a price, and that the price is gym time.
It is. And you don't have to be a gym rat, and there's, it's just activity, and that's just the place where you be, whether it's your home gym or whether you're going to a gym. It doesn't matter, however your activity is. Some people are just runners. You're out there running, and I remember doing those long runs as a triathlete all by myself out on country roads. It's just you and your mind and your thoughts of, that's where that's where all the ideas and the energy to face the rest of the day or the week or solving problems, your critical thinking, and people will scoff at hearing that and say for them it doesn't work that way. Well, they've not tried it, and they've not put effort into using that time as productive thinking time.
Yeah.
And so there's a double-edged sword. There's two benefits for being right off the bat there. So I don't know. It is different for everybody, but there aren't really any excuses to not be healthy, and it's not rocket science. You follow a sound nutritional plan, and you get active every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that simple. So when you look at it like that, you're like, I don't understand why. Why don't people want to participate? Or at least try to figure it out on their own. Maybe they don't want to pay for the coaching, but you could give that a shot. Go walk. Eat less. And the macros, like we talked about, real quick, and then we could end. I'll go back to the macros real quick. When you think about the stuff that we ingest every day, the other benefit of this program was looking at all the food you put in your body. When you create that pattern that week and go back and look, if you're truly honest with what you're putting in your body, it's crazy. When you're looking at the sugary drinks and the amount of carbohydrates and the breads and the all the fried food that we probably put in our body. That kind of stuff adds up, by themselves, they're not a danger, but when you combine it with all the other stuff that's piled up over the week, I mean, I know you've calculated, it takes 3,500 calories to put a pound on, or 3,500 burned calories to lose a pound. We could easily ingest tens of thousands of extra calories every week by not paying attention to what we're nibbling on and snacking on. And then we suddenly were like, whoa, what happened? Now my pants don't fit. They fit, 3 weeks ago, and today they don't. Well, there's 30,000 calories between 3 weeks ago and today that you decided to put in your body. That's why your belt doesn't fit, and it's as simple as that. And the older you get, the harder it is to take it off. And that's just a simple fact. That's biology. You have to work harder.
I was as we wrap this up, I'm in a hotel tonight, traveling for work. Surprise, surprise, and in a small little town that probably only Jeffrey knows, who's listened since he's a fellow Missourian, but a very limited restaurant option. So I found Applebees, and I was glancing at the menu, and almost everything on it was interesting to me was over 2,000 milligrams of sodium.
Yeah.
So I had to get, and that's another area that working professional dads, they join the program and they're like, wow, I had no idea that water and sodium was so important in this journey.
Yeah.
And it's in everything, sodium is. So
yeah.
Anyway, so that's a side tangent, but just wanted to applaud who you are. Jeffrey, you've certainly been a source of inspiration and motivation for me, to the point where I'm entrusting a lot of my clients to you, and you're just an amazing story of someone who believes and stays committed to a goal, and is a walking example of pursuing things and having the courage even when it's hard and you encounter difficulties. And thanks for coming on here tonight to share your story with everyone. It's been great.
No, it's fantastic. I love sharing the story, and if it can benefit one guy to get motivated, tomorrow morning to get up and hit the gym, or get on the treadmill, or do your walk in the morning, whatever it is that you weren't going to do, then it's all worth it.
Well, till we speak again. Thanks again, Jeffrey.
All right. Thanks, man.